Wait for official instructions. Wait my ass.
Crack mods and gaming.
That's my official instructions.
Port forwarding will always be under the firewall settings because that's the function of a firewall. So we're going to go to port forwarding. These menus and your menus may and or will be different, but all the concepts are exactly the same. Here it says select a device. Now, this is also the target or the host or whatever term your particular router uses. This is where we want the packets or our ports to be forwarded to. And that's going to be our dead server, of course. Public IP address, you don't have to worry about. Firewall already knows what that is. If you have a particular multi-homed router that has multiple public IP addresses, then you may have to worry about that. But in most home routers, you don't. Here it says select an application. So you'll see it does have my 7 Days to Die and some other applications. Right now it's set to custom. Yours may or may not have this drop down menu, but we're going to create a new, understand, these are called rules. So your router, your firewall may name it something different. When it says select application, it may simply be asking you, is there a preset rule? Some of these aim to talk, it has preset rules. In this case, we're using a custom because we're creating our own. So your menu may have you create your own rule. And I want to call this Conan TCP. So our TCP address for Conan is going to be our 27015. That's all you need for that TCP rule. We're going to add it. The next one is going to be our UDP. So now that these rules are added, you'll see we've got our 7 Days to Die set up the same. It has our TCP port, it has our UDP ports, Conan, the same thing. You do notice none of the ports for the 7 Days conflict with the ports for Conan game, but you always want to make sure that they are not, simply because you cannot have two games using the same ports.
We're going to go to Advanced and then Advanced Setup, and under there you'll see Port Forwarding. We're going to add a custom rule. Now we're going to set up our Left 4 Dead 2 TCP ports, as soon as I can learn how to spell. TCP. Then we're going to copy and paste in the ports that need to be in there, that are required for the game, or required for Steam actually. And we want to point it to our dead server, our internal IP. Your interface may make you put in the IP manually. And some interfaces make you put in the external IP address. One of the reasons you want to keep it on hand just in case. Now we're going to create another custom rule or custom service, whatever. And we're going to put in our Left 4 Dead 2 UDP ports. And we're going to copy and paste in those ports. This is a badly written rule, and let me tell you why. Because you'll see the last part of that rule is a 27,031 to 20,036. So it opens up the whole port range between 27,000 and 27,031. And then we're just going to identify 27,036 all by itself. Why don't we just create the range so it's simpler for us to do, and just create that range from 27,000 to 27,036. Because there's nothing else is going to use any of the ports in between. So as long as we've reserved them for ourselves or for this rule, no other rule will use them. Point it towards our internal IP. And again, you may have to put in the IP manually, and some interfaces make you also put in the external IP address. So you have an understanding. I keep a set of ports, remote UDP, Steamworks P2P, and required ports, and you'll see that all of the ports for this game are already in those rules. So if you plan on running multiple games or want to have other games on here, it's best to just have those rules put in so you keep them there, because technically I could delete the two rules we just put in and everything will run just fine. And that's it for port forwarding. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to put it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer those concerns or questions.
You're going to log into your router and you're going to look for firewall. Under firewall, you're going to find port forwarding. Some routers will have a link for port forwarding that'll take you straight there without having to look through the menus. Now you'll see that I have a 27015 Conan rule already created. I'm going to delete that so that we can create one that is shared with our Left 4 Dead server. So we want to select a destination or a device in this case. Destination host, your router may call it several things, but it's where we want our traffic to go to. What is our destination? Then it wants us to select a rule. Now mine has a drop down, yours may not. It may just simply have you type it in. I select custom so I can name it myself, because the naming convention you use for these rules is very important. Keep them simple. Keep them very understandable, exactly what they're for. Because if you go messing around and have to troubleshoot and don't know what these rules are named and what they're for, it's a pain if you have to delete them all and recreate them and all those things. So make sure your naming convention is the same. So here what I've done is I've simply created a new rule and called it Conan Left 4 Dead TCP rule and gave it the 27015 port. Now technically that's no different than what was there before, other than I named it and understand now that both those games use that same port. So if I have both those games running and I run into trouble where friends can't connect, they're connecting to the wrong game, or just whatever, I could go in here and see, oh, this is Left 4 Dead as well. Is Left 4 Dead and Conan running it simultaneously? If so, I need to turn one off. This is not the optimal way we want to port forward our games. So we're going to eliminate the Conan Left 4 Dead, and we're going to recreate our Conan 27015 port. And let's choose our host. Our destination is going to be our dead server, and of course we already have a Conan TCP rule in there that we're going to create, and we're going to put in 27015 as our port number, and we're going to add that rule to our list. Then we're going to recreate Left 4 Dead. So we want to select our destination, where we want our ports forwarded to, a host or whatever it's named on your router, and we're going to call it Left 4 Dead TCP. And it's a TCP UDP rule, and we're going to give it the 27016, just one number up from Conan Exiles. You can go back on your server and change that port in the server interface. So that's our rule asking me for my device is my destination, where I want the ports to be forwarded to. You can manually enter the IP address if you don't have a drop-down option. The public IP address you usually don't need. Your router, if its interface is external interfaces public facing, then you won't need it. If you're behind another router, then you'll need it. That's a whole nother tutorial. So application name is simply what you want to call. That's the name of the rule, whatever your router happens to call it. Just put in the name so that you understand it. And whether it's a TCP UDP rule, put in your port numbers and you're done.